Everybody vibes with the all-new Camry. A standard 225 horsepower engine and an available sport-tuned suspension provide the power and agility to take you anywhere. And to do it in style. With available features like the two-tone midnight black metallic roof, color-matched sport grille, panoramic glass roof, and cockpit red leather-trimmed interior, the Camry has never looked better. And because every all-new Camry is a hybrid, it delivers up to an EPA-estimated 51 miles per gallon combined. Whatever your vibe, it's a Camry vibe. Learn more at toyota.com/Camry. Hello, from Wonder Media Network, I'm Jenny Kaplan, and this is Womanica. This month, we're talking about adversaries, women who fought for their place in history, whether they fought to get to the top of their sport, against how society perceived them, or fought with each other to be champions. We're talking about women who broke barriers and sometimes did seemingly impossible or unspeakable things to carve out their place in history. This episode of Womanica is brought to you by the all-new Toyota Camry. Today we're talking about a woman who took on more than just one person. She picked a fight with the United States federal government and fought tirelessly to protect the land and history of her indigenous community. She went to battle for people who'd been pushed out of their homes, separated from each other, and taken advantage of by colonizers. Let's talk about Lyda Conley. Eliza Lyda Burton Conley was born between 1868 and 1869 in Kansas. Her father was an English farmer and her mother was the descendant of a Wyandot chief. Lyda was part of one of the few remaining Wyandot families in Kansas. At the beginning of the 19th century, the Wyandot tribe was based in Ohio and Michigan. But before Lyda was born, the Wyandots were forcibly removed to a reservation in Kansas by way of the Indian Removal Act of 1830. This new reservation was rife with disease, and the land was, for the most part, unlivable. Many people died during the move. In the mid-1800s, the U.S. government once again tried to force the Wyandots to move, this time to Oklahoma. But Lyda's family didn't want to go. They were among a group of Wyandots who accepted a treaty with the federal government in 1855 to avoid having to leave Kansas. Though Lyda and her family were allowed to stay, they were forced to dissociate from the Wyandot nation and become U.S. citizens. Their legal tribal identities were dissolved in the process. Lyda grew up in extreme poverty. Her mother and one of her sisters died when she was just 2 years old, and her father passed away when she was a teenager. Her older sister, Ida, got a job cooking at the local county jail and saved up some money to send her younger sisters to Park College in Missouri. Lyda made the most of her education and worked tirelessly, even rowing herself across the river every day to make it to school. She eventually graduated from college as a telegraph operator and took up a teaching job in Kansas City. One critical place in that city would forever alter her life. The Huron Indian Cemetery was established in 1843 after the forced relocation of Wyandots to Kansas and the deaths of many tribal members. Huron is the name French settlers used to refer to the Wyandot. The tribe built a cemetery on a bluff above the Missouri River to avoid flooding. These burial grounds were an important part of the community and a long tradition of paying respect to their ancestors. Lyda's mother and sister were both buried at Huron along with 200 other Wyandot people. The land was supposedly protected under the Treaty of 1855. In the decades after the cemetery was established, the city grew around it, and the land grew in value. Eventually, the federal government and many Wyandots in Oklahoma decided to sell the cemetery. To do so, they'd exhume the bodies that had been laid to rest there. Lyda was horrified, so she refused to give in. In 1902, Lyda graduated from the Kansas City School of Law as one of the only women in her class. Later, she was admitted to the Missouri bar. In 1906, when Congress officially authorized the sale and mass exhumation of the Huron Cemetery, Lyda submitted a permanent injunction to prevent the sale. She and her sister Helena set themselves up with their father's shotgun at the cemetery entrance. They built a small shack they dubbed Fort Conley. they ignored repeated threats of arrest from the police and U.S. Army and hung a sign that read, "Trespass at your own peril," at the cemetery gate. For 6 years, the two sisters kept up and protected the burial site in shifts. They waited for Lyda's lawsuit to move through the courts. Lyda later talked about her time at the cemetery, saying, "I was not afraid of the troops. I knew that was only a plan to scare me away from the place. I knew the Constitution too well to be afraid of them." Lyda vowed to go to Washington to personally defend the cemetery if that was what it took. She explained, "No lawyer could plead for the grave of my mother as I could. No lawyer could have the heart interest in this case that I have. If I lose, then I will admit that the Constitution of the United States is Greek to me." In 1907, Lyda filed a nearly 70-page brief to appeal to the United States Supreme Court. In 1910, she took the stand, opting to represent herself. At the time, she was the third woman and first Native American woman to argue a case in front of the Supreme Court. During Lyda's oral argument, she drew attention to the hypocrisy of the situation. She said, "Bury me with my fathers in Huron Cemetery, the most sacred and hallowed spot on earth to me. And I cannot believe that this is superstitious reverence, any more than I can believe that the reverence every true American has for the grave of Washington at Mount Vernon is superstitious reverence." Lyda fought bravely in the court on behalf of her people. She highlighted the unjust government actions that benefited white colonizers at the cost of indigenous people. Ultimately, the Supreme Court ruled against her, claiming that the federal government had the right to administer tribal land. Lyda and Helena did not let this stop them from continuing to guard the cemetery. In 1913, a Republican senator from Kansas named Charles Curtis passed a bill that permanently protected the cemetery and funded its upkeep. Lyda fought for the cemetery until the end of her life. Her shack was destroyed. She was arrested several times, and even spent 10 days in jail to protect the land that was rightfully hers. She declared, "While we live, these bodies shall not be disturbed." Lyda died in 1946. According to a friend, as Lyda was leaving the Kansas City Public Library, a stranger hit her on the head with a brick and stole her purse, even though she only had 20 cents inside. Lyda died from her injuries. She was 76 years old. Still, her legacy lives on. In 1971, the Huron Indian Cemetery was added to the National Register of Historic Places and renamed the Wyandot National Cemetery. This is where Lyda was laid to rest and remains to this day. All month, we're talking about Adversaries. For more information, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Womanica Podcast. Special thanks to Liz Kaplan, my favorite sister and co-creator. As always, we'll be taking a break for the weekend. Talk to you on Monday. Everybody vibes with the all-new Camry. A standard 225 horsepower engine and an available sport-tuned suspension provide the power and agility to take you anywhere, and to do it in style. With available features like the two-tone midnight black metallic roof, color-matched sport grille, panoramic glass roof, and cockpit red leather trimmed interior, the Camry has never looked better. And because every all-new Camry is a hybrid, it delivers up to an EPA estimated 51 miles per gallon combined. Whatever your vibe, it's a Camry vibe. Learn more at toyota.com/Camry.